It's going to be a meeting. I have a feeling.
It's even better.
I now call to order the meeting of the Concord City Council of Monday, March 9th, 2026. Would you all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Councilor Brown.
Here.
Mayor Champlin.
Present.
Councilor Davey.
Present.
Councilor Fennessy.
Present.
Councilor Foote.
Present.
Councilor Grady Sexton.
Excused.
Councilor Horn.
Here.
Councilor Caleb. Here. Councilor Keach.
Here.
Councilor Kretovic.
Here.
Councilor Kurtz.
Present.
Councilor Schlosser.
Here.
Councilor Schultz. Here. Councilor Sekou.
Here.
And Councilor Todd.
Here.
Very good. Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the February 9th, 2026 City Council meeting, as well as the February 19th, 2026 City Council priority setting session.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All those, Councilor Kretovic.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have just two small amendments to the meeting minutes of the council meeting on February 9th. The first one is on page 3. The item is number 11. It includes a contribution to the library from the Concord Library Foundation. Just a notation that that is Councilor Brown's employer. The second one is on page 12 of the minutes, related to the discussion of the compensation study. Councilor Brown's husband is a member of the police department, and that should also be noted that in the meeting minutes, not for the purpose of merit of the items, just simply to assure transparency in our code of ethics. Thank you.
Very well. Second, Madam.
Your Honor, I would like to add that Councilor Brown, I believe it is in the minutes, that I noted that I was not speaking on any union positions when I had my discussion about the class and compensation study.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Councilor. All right. Are we ready?
Oh, absolutely.
Are we ready for the vote? All those in favor of the minutes as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Now, it is my great pleasure to recognize the service of a longtime city employee. I'd like to recognize Rose Fife. Rose, would you come forward? I have a resolution. This is a resolution in recognition of the services of Rose Fife. City of Concord resolves as follows. Whereas Rose Fife joined the City of Concord's Code Administration Department on April 18th, 1988 as a senior clerk, and later served as secretary, followed by Administrative Specialist 2, then Administrative Assistant, and subsequently Fiscal Supervisor, Rose received the Government Accounting Certificate from the New Hampshire Municipal Association. And whereas Rose was the clerk for the Zoning Board of Adjustment and the clerk for the Building Code Board of Appeals from 1989 until 2023, and whereas Rose was promoted to the position of building inspector in September of 2023 and obtained her International Code Council Residential Building Inspector certification, she also was an important part of configuring and maintaining the Project Tracker permitting software for many years, as well as helping to configure the new Tyler EnterGov permitting software. And whereas Rose was an important part of the Code Administration Division of the Community Development Department during her decades of service, and whereas Rose retired from the City of Concord on January 31st, 2026, after 38 years of service. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Mayor and members of the Concord City Council that we hereby record our appreciation for the many years of service of Rose Fife to the City of Concord, our esteem for her ability and professional commitment, and our respect for her integrity and high character. And be it further resolved that we hereby acknowledge that the service and presence of Rose Fife will be truly missed by the City Council, the City Administration, her peers in the Community Development Department, and the entire Concord community. And we all extend our best wishes to her during her well-deserved retirement. In City Council, February 9th, 2026, Byron O. Champlin, Mayor.
Jeff is hired now.
When's the last time you said no?
Especially for pictures.
That's what I'm talking about.
You are hired. You are hired.
Thank you, Councilor Foot. Yes.
I just want to say Rose was one of those type of people that I've worked with for 27, 8 years, who would do anything that needed to get done. So.
Thank you for those words.
That's a great order.
All right, this brings us to our consent agenda. I will note that items 22, 23, 24, 25, 28, and 31 have been pulled from the consent agenda. That being said, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So
Moved and seconded. Councilor Brown?
Yes, I'm recusing from item number 20 and item number 32, as my husband is a Concord police officer.
Thank you, Councilor. Are we ready for the vote? All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Thank you. By the way, I forgot to, in all the excitement when we started, and since we were running a little late, I forgot to mention that if there's anyone who needs audio assistance, we do have hearing devices in the back of the room, which are earphones that you can put on that can help you more clearly hear the proceedings today, and they're available at the Concord TV booth in the back of the room. That now takes us to our public hearing portion of the meeting. Madam City Clerk, item 36A.
It is a resolution appropriating the sum of $15,000 for barricade rental and installation and accepting the sum of $15,000 in outdoor dining license revenues for this purpose.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager.
Madam members of the council, on March 13th of 2023, the City Council held a public hearing and appropriated monies and approved modifications in the city's outdoor dining regulations to require the use of concrete jersey barriers to enclose outdoor dining areas located within on-street parking spaces. The appropriation was for $34,000. Since 2023, the city has utilized the dollars to contract with local vendor to furnish, install, and remove concrete barriers used to encumber on-street parking spaces at no cost to 4 participating restaurants. These are the restaurants who are interested in doing parking in the parking spaces as the Siam Orchid, Revival, the Barley House, and the Draft. The $34,000 appropriated in 2023 is nearly expended. There's about $2,633 remaining, and insufficient funds are available for rental, installation, or removal of barriers for this upcoming dining season. We wish to establish a non-ordinance-based fee to cover the cost of rental, installation, and removal of barriers from the city's vendor and administration thereof. The fee will be based on quotes received from the city's vendor for the cost of renting, installing, and removing the barriers, plus a minor administrative charge to cover city administration's oversight thereof. City administration intends to establish the fee in later this month or early next month, provide notice to those restaurants who may desire to encumber parking spaces for the 2026 dining season, which begins May 15th. The rental fee collected will be collected by the Code Division for the Community Development Department. Prior to the approval of a dining permit, General Service Department will incur the expense of rental and installation. City administration also is considering affording participating restaurants the option to make their own private arrangements to furnish and install barriers and associated delineators with a vendor of their choice, provided the barriers are concrete jersey barriers which comply with the applicable New Hampshire DOT specifications. And you'd see there's pictures based on why you decided to go to concrete versus the water barrels you had at one time. We're glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for the city manager? Councilor Keach.
Mr. Manager, is there any consideration to aesthetics in making these barriers look more presentable than jersey barriers? I know other communities have taken steps and it does work.
Generally what happens, if it's something that they're going to own, then they don't, the owners will make the investment and improve them. If it's something just rented and then goes back to the jersey barrier, oddly or whoever it may be, you generally don't make those improvements because another set of barriers could come back the following year. So we'll make, if somebody wants to do the decorative, particularly if they're going to buy them themselves, would be all for them doing something like that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the city manager? Councilor Brown.
Yes, the $34,000 that was appropriated in March 2023, that came from the Economic Development Reserve, is that correct? The capital reserve account?
It could be. I'm not sure, but yes, it could be.
Okay. Follow up?
Follow up?
So that money was moved out of the Economic Development Reserve into a holding. Can you just explain, is that the same location where funds from restaurants would deposit for Jersey barriers?
No, I think this would just simply be in and out because we would have to, if we were collecting dollars from an entity who wants to do these, then the people who want to use them would have to pay. In the past, money was just going out. There was no money coming in for this purpose, for the barriers themselves.
Any other questions for the city manager? Very well, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to testify? Please come forward. Welcome.
Good evening, mayors, members of the city council, city manager, and city clerk. I'm Roy Schweiker, and once again, I'd like to thank you for scheduling hearings so I can go to all the same night. And this particular one, one of the things you just approved is a notation by the director of city assessing on likely changes to values of property in the city. And I did some rough calculations, and my figuring is that ordinary homes, the tax rate, the taxes paid, not the rate, is going to go up 8% this year. Condos 12%, manufactured housing 40%. But commercial property, the taxes paid will actually go down 11% based on the numbers that the director of assessing provided. And so I think it's long since past time that residents are being asked to subsidize commercial property when the residential taxes are going to go up and the commercial property is going to go down. So I would like to suggest that, yes, I agree with the city manager, it's long since time that people paid for their own barriers, but I'd like to go further than that. I'd like to say we need to look at the amount they're paying. We talk about people, not finding parking spaces on Main Street. I think that the amount charged to reserve those spaces should be based on the regular rate for parking on Main Street times the expected hours that those might ordinarily be filled, times whatever the parking rate is. So I think that these people should be told not only you're going to be paying for your barriers, but you'll be renting your parking spaces at a much higher rate than you paid in the past. And your, what do you call them, goals for this year? You left out one important one, and that is that you need to start charging people in the city for things that they use that other people don't get. That's one way to avoid either raising taxes or cutting services. And I think downtown is a prime example of the residents have been subsidizing downtown for years, and it's time to quit. Councilor Todd can help on this, but my recollection is we were going to raise the fee for parking on Main Street to like $1.50 or $1.75 10 years ago. But first, the downtown construction came along. Oh, we can't raise it before downtown construction. Then there was COVID. We can't raise it during COVID. And then we can't raise it again. But I think it's time that we set parking fees that fully cover the expense of parking downtown. No money coming from taxes, no money coming from TIF districts. It's all paid by the people. And that not only includes, the ordinary parking attendants, it includes removing all the snow from around the parking spaces, on the sidewalks around the meters. Well, let's let downtown start paying for some of the stuff they get that nobody else gets. So that should be included both in the parking fee and whatever clever schemes the city manager can think of to charge the downtown people that they've been avoiding for years. I mean, another example is in town Concord. I think we should cut their fee in half this year and then half again next year till it goes to zero. Why are we subsidizing an activist group for one part of the city and not other parts of the city? If the businesses downtown or the residents don't feel like it's worth supporting in town Concord, then why are you making the taxpayers pay for it? So I guess, yes, I approve the idea of charging the people for their barriers, but I really think we've got to start looking for other people and places to charge for stuff that they get. We don't. Like, for instance, right now, the per acre assessment for my substandard housing lot is less per acre than the assessment for the Love Your Neighbor building downtown. They get all sorts of services. I get nothing. I not only don't get my sidewalk plowed, I get the snow from the street plowed on it that then I have to remove myself. So I think it's time that we start making the downtown people pay for what they get through some mechanism. And if they don't want to pay, that's fine. We'll just do less for them. Do what we've done for them like everybody else. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Credible.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Schweiker, thank you for your testimony this evening. The one item that you spoke to with regards to the assessment study, that was one of the items that was pulled from consent, and so we haven't actually passed it yet. It's going to be discussed later. I did want to ask you a question with regards to the restaurants that are in Bicentennial Square or in Eagle Square that we collect no revenue from for the use of our park space. Do you see that as an opportunity for the city to assess a fee for the use of those parks during those summer months so that they are equalized in paying for city space?
My feeling is that anybody that is using city space should be paying for it, and not only will reduce our tax rate, but it's fair to other businesses that have to provide their own dining area. If they have to provide a dining area and pay taxes on it, pay the expense of it, I don't see why ones that are using city spaces shouldn't be paying a fee to use the space, the cost of cleaning up the area if we do it instead of them. And I would even go so far as to say, I think a lot of places that have a restaurant or dining area within another business get a percentage of the gross from the thing, and if we think we can get that, so much the better. But we need to start getting money from places other than taxes.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Schweiker? Thank you, Mr. Schweiker. Is there anyone else who would like to testify on this item? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Madam City Clerk, item 36B.
It is an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, Title I General Code, Chapter 1, Government Organization, Fees, Fines, and Penalties.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager.
Your Honor, members of the council, New Hampshire, in New Hampshire 2025 Senate Bill 245, which has been signed into law by the governor, amended New Hampshire RSA 358-T to prohibit balance surprise ambulance billing, and also amended New Hampshire RSA 420J to establish a new rate schedule for ground ambulance reimbursement commencing January 1, 2026. So the new rates for services are 3.25 times the rate paid by Medicare, which results in new rates that are higher than the rates currently in Concord's fee schedule. These fee changes will be applied to both commercial New Hampshire insurance companies as well as patients who self-pay. Medicare and Medicaid will continue to only pay their established rates. Glad to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for the City Manager? Councilor Brown.
Is this will generate revenue for the city? Am I reading that right? Okay.
We anticipate.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Any other questions for the City Manager? All right, seeing none, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to testify on this? Please come forward. Welcome back, Mr. Schweiker.
Okay, thank you again, everybody. Mr. Keach may remember that this is a topic I've been following in the legislature. And Congress, U.S. Congress has been trying for years to deal with Medicare and unanticipated fees, and emergency rooms and stuff like that. And they finally managed to get everybody to agree except ground ambulance services. Ground ambulance services still cannot agree with Medicare as to what the appropriate fee is. And the New Hampshire legislature last year commissioned a study, and they determined that the actual cost of ground ambulances was just about double what the Medicare fee was. And So the real problem is that Medicare and Medicaid together use over half of the ambulance service in the state. You know, old people, sick people who use ambulances, right? So when they're paying only half of what they should be paying, that means that everybody else has to pay more, or else a lot of the small rural ambulances go out of business. And so the legislature, in their wisdom, instead of saying, well, we should increase the Medicaid rate to pay what it actually costs these, said, oh no, we'll bill the insurance companies for this. So that's where the 325% comes from. If you bill the people who aren't Medicare and Medicaid enough to cover the fact that they're only paying half of the true amount, if you bill everybody else 325%, then that will cover the shortfall, and hopefully these small ambulance services won't go out of business. And, you know, I guess I'd have to say, well, clearly the city is wise to bill the insurance companies as much as we can, even though it's, to my mind, patently unfair. But if we can get money out of the insurance companies, so much the better. But I'd like to suggest that maybe you consider saying if a resident of Concord that does not have insurance needs an ambulance, we'll only bill them the true cost, which is double the Medicare rate instead of 3 1/4 times the Medicare rate. I mean, it's still a big chunk of money, because I'll let the city manager try and tell you what the rate might be, because you're all sitting down. But anyway, I think that it's one thing to stick the insurance companies with this excess bill, but I'd like to, you know, be kind to our residents. A resident of Concord gets a bill that's only double the Medicare rate, which is the approximate cost, and not 3 1/4 times. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schweiker. Any questions from Mr. Schweiker?
I just want to say thank you. That option was good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Schweiker. Would anyone else like to testify on this item? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. That brings us to public hearing action. Madam City Clerk, item 37.
It is a resolution appropriating the sum of $15,000 for barricade rental and installation, and accepting the sum of $15,000 and outdoor dining license revenues for this purpose.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Councilor Kretovic.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to see the committee return to the thought of what we could charge in our parks for those restaurants that are using that spaces, so there's some equity across these restaurants. That's it.
Thank you. Councilor Secretary.
Thank you, Your Honor. I don't know when I read it in the report, but it's still the option that if they find a better rate to put there, that's still an option,
As long as it's done safely.
as long as it meets the guideline as well.
It just meets the requirements, right?
Thank you.
Councilor Brown.
I just want to clarify, so if they find a better rate, so they are responsible, do they receive any kind of barrier at all from the city? Outdoor dining facilities, or that choose to do outdoor dining, do they get water barrels? Nothing.
No, they used to get water barrels. You ended up getting
At
a
one time.
grant, I believe, at one time, John, was for water barrels. And then because of the horrific accident that occurred down at the Barley House, if I remember correctly, you decided to require concrete barriers.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. And they are responsible for it themselves. There's no, okay, yeah.
No, what we're saying is, in the past, you, the taxpayers, provided to put these in place. We'd be glad to put them in place as long as you're going to pay for them, right? And if you don't want to pay for it because you can do a better rate than we can do, then go do it. But you got to do it on our conditions and our standards.
I'm fine with that. Thank you.
That's it.
Any other questions for the city manager, or any other comments? None? All right. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The motion passes. Madam City Clerk, item 38.
It is an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, Title I, General Code, Chapter 1, amending fees, fines, and penalties.
Move approval. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Can I speak?
I saw Councilor Schultz first, and then you.
It's my motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to address one of the comments from Mr. Schweiker, and perhaps the city manager can address this, but my understanding is that we do not refuse service to people, whether they're residents of Concord or not for ambulance services, and that there is a mechanism whereby if people can't afford the cost of an ambulance ride, they can request that the city not collect from them. Is that correct? Correct. Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Schultz.
Well, I was also going to address what Mr. Schweiker had said, because he often makes excellent points. And, you know, any piece of the tapestry that is so ugly that is our American healthcare system, you start to tug at one thread of it, it's a nightmare. But he does point out an absolute inequity in the system that is ridiculous. I mean, it doesn't even get to the fact that some people might have insurance and their deductible is enormous. But I think what Councilor Fennessy said is an excellent and helpful point. So I just also wanted to thank Mr. Schweiker for his always bringing the wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it, motion is passed. This brings us to reports, and we have a report. Mr. City Manager?
Yes. Mr. LeBrun, would you bring forward our team?
Do you want me to read the title?
Yes, please.
That was
Sorry.
special.
It's a report and recommendations for Beaver Meadow Golf Course Independent Auditor Financial Operations Review.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, thank you very much for entertaining us this evening. The city manager and I have been working with CBIZ and their independent auditing in order to look at the financial operations of Beaver Meadow Golf Course. There have been a number of comments, claims made over the past couple of years about the way things were going over there, and we wanted to kind of set the record straight, and we wanted to put policies and procedures in place that would make the most sense as we go forward with new administration or management at the golf course with Pat and also Josh. So what we did was we contracted with CBIZ, who is also our independent auditor for our regular audit on an annual basis, in order to put this in motion. With me tonight, we have Kevin Wright, who is the managing director for CBIZ. We have Tiffany Ball, who is a senior associate with CBIZ. They were very much involved in the entire process. And you all know Pat Lemon, who's the director of operations at the golf course. So from here, I'll turn it over. They'll go over the program and their recommendations, and then the city's responses. So, Kevin. All right.
Thank you, Brian. Good evening, everyone. We appreciate the opportunity to present the results of our review. So, as Brian mentioned, this is the results of our financial operations review of Beaver Meadow Golf Course. I believe you've all been provided a copy of our report, so I'm going to jump right in with the summary of the overview. I'm going to talk a little bit about our approach, how we performed our review, and then really spend the majority of our time together talking about the observations and recommendations that we've provided. So the purpose of our review, as Brian mentioned, CBIZ also performs your financial statement audit. Our review is much different than that. We took a look at the design and operating effectiveness of internal controls. So we want to go in and make sure that there are controls in place that protect assets, that produce reliable financial information, and that also comply with policies. So how do we do that? We do that through a lot of interviews. As you can see in our report, we interviewed 5 different individuals to get an understanding, primarily around cash revenue and handling, tournaments and outings, inventory, club credits and discounts, and then golf pro lessons incentive payments. So I will say we interviewed individuals at both the golf course as well as city finance department. We do want to say thank you. Everybody was very cooperative, very helpful in our endeavor. Items were provided timely to us, questions were answered promptly, so we do appreciate that very much. The scope of our activities that were reviewed, we did a control assessment. When we did do testing, which we go in and we test internal controls, much like someone would test a financial statement, we test internal controls. We looked at transactions that were between October 2023 and October 2025, so a 2-year period. We have different information in the report that talks about, in more detail about our procedures. I wasn't necessarily going to go through that. I kind of wanted to jump straight ahead to our observations and recommendations, which begin on page 4. So our first observation was around the cash handling and revenue. Observation A. So really one of the things as part of the internal controls we do, one of the things we're always on the outlook for is policies and procedures. So how does everybody know what to do? How does the customer know what a policy is? So one of the things that we noted was there's no comprehensive refund in place, policy in place. Obviously, if I'm a customer and I want to come in and I want to know what's my refund policy, can I refund this? I want to be able to know that. And then also as staff, we want to understand what's an applicable, refund, what type of items can I get a refund on, how long can I get a refund on after purchases. So those types of items. We did note there were around $40,000 noted in TSNAP, which is the golf course's financial system that feeds the Munis general ledger system with the city. So that's $40,000 across a 2-year period. We did find that TSNAP is not able to distinguish between a refund and a void. So were those refunds? Yes. Were those voids? Yes. So it was a mix. We weren't able to distinguish what is a true refund versus what is a void. I think one of the themes you've probably seen throughout our report is there are some limitations with TSNAP. It's difficult to get some information out of. Part of that may be the way that it's configured. Part of that may be the way that maybe just understanding from the Beaver Meadow team. And also some of it may just be that TSNAP needs to get involved and help with maybe some report producing items. So anyway, our recommendation there is really get a refund policy in place and then also perform an independent review of those refunds amounts. So say each month, come in and take a look and see maybe who's providing the refunds. Is there a specific time frame that refunds and voids occurred? Look for any unusual trends and document and follow any applicable follow-up. Observation B had to do with the cash that's stored each night. There's a cash drawer that's maintained. There was $600 maintained each night. That's maintained in a locked cabinet at the golf course. Has one key. The key was hidden, although it was in a place that would be accessible to employees, not in the public, but employees. So we recommended really go in and make sure that you have more than one key. We don't want to be losing that single key. And then also make sure that those keys are probably hidden in a little more space that's not quite accessible. Also, as a new understand, you're constructing a new clubhouse, make sure and get a safe rather than just relying on a locked cabinet. Safe will provide much better safeguards. And then also really reassess whether that $600 is an appropriate amount. Seemed maybe a little bit too much to be maintaining overnight. I think the city agreed, or the golf course agreed, that yes, they're going to be taking a look at reducing that amount. Observation C. So various outings are held at the golf course. So an outing would be a tournament, a fundraiser that may be held by a charitable organization or a business. So they are coming in and the golf course ends up invoicing them for those services. One of the things we noted was that those invoices are not tracked through TSNAP. Right now it's a manual invoice that is, monitored to see for payment, but there's no record of it within TSNAP. So the revenue is not being recorded until time of payment. We did test some samples of those invoices, and we noted that they were paid timely, they were recorded in TSNAP correctly, in Munis correctly when the payments were received. So we didn't have any concerns about maybe things not getting paid or getting paid timely or getting paid recorded correctly. But definitely, though, we would suggest that the golf course begin tracking those through TSNAP. And again, another limitation there that's got to be worked through. And then also make sure that the revenue and associated receivable are recorded at the time of the event. So observation D, another council approved 2026 rates. There were 17 daily green fee rates that were approved. The rates were input into TSNAP, but we noted there wasn't any verification that those rates were input correctly. So that may seem like a small thing, but that is a crucial step. If one of those rates were to get in the system incorrectly, it could be, there's many transactions, which obviously a green fee rate applies to. We also noted that there was one rate that's on the website that was not approved by the council, and that was the $28 reciprocal dairy field rate. So that's another check that verification would do, is make sure not only the rates were set up correctly, but that everything were approved was put in, and only those things approved were put in. So that's definitely something that we've recommended, is to make sure that those rates are verified, and then to go back and get that other rate approved through the council. We did look at rates, so we didn't have any concerns that rates were input incorrectly. All the rates did appear to be put into the system correctly. Observation E. So this had to do with green fee payments. When we talked with staff and addressed this issue, it really seemed to be a cost-saving time, and they felt like they were providing good customer service and getting them through the checkout process quicker. But what we noted was there are varying rates. Obviously, there's 17 different rates, as I noted, but just as an example, I may go play, and it's going to cost me $32. That's my rate. Brian, as a Concord resident, goes and it costs him $30 because there's a special rate for residents. What we noted was it took longer to get through the checkout process for Brian utilizing that resident rate, because there was just a lot more functions you had to go through TSNAP. So the workaround, staff were picking my rate at $32 and then manually providing a $2 discount. So it allows more room for error. Obviously, we didn't note any. We tested a number of these to say, did the final rate get charged correctly? We did find that we didn't see any errors where the rates that was charged was incorrect. It's just that there should be, again, another workaround in TSNAP where it's a quicker method, maybe set up some different schedules, some different screens within TSNAP to be able to get through those quicker. And that also impacts the reporting that can be provided. So, for example, we can't tell exactly how many of each rate was charged because those are different, and then you've got to apply the discount codes. Observation F. So credits. So the course issues credits in various circumstances, oftentimes maybe for prizes, maybe as a credit for something that's returned and there's a credit. There wasn't, again, any policy around credits and how they can or cannot be used. So that's, again, something that's really important to not only the club, but to also to the customers that come in and they want to understand, how can I use my club credits? So really adopting a formal club credit policy governs how uses of the credits, transfer rules, expiration dates, those types of activities. Observation G. So each month, the golf course's daily general ledger reports are provided to the city. They do a review of those reports and the related support. We didn't note that there was any evidence of review that had been done. So oftentimes, from an internal control perspective, that's how, as an auditor, anybody else could come in and verify, hey, did this get checked and who did it and when? So our recommendation was that those items be signed off by the city and initialed and dated. We did note one minor misposting during our testing here was $889 in golf simulator revenue that was mistakenly reported to a park donation revenue code.
The line below.
Yeah, which was on the line below on the report. Observation H has to do with rain checks. So again, back to the policy theme, there wasn't a rain check policy. And also the hard copy rain checks are issued rather than managing those through TSNAP. So again, that recurring thing of maybe utilizing TSNAP more. So really our recommendation there is exploring that functionality to make sure that we can track those and monitor those rain checks that are provided through TSNAP. Observation I, this was around annual inventory counts. So we did note that the last 2 years there's been an annual inventory count. We looked at those procedures that were performed Some good. There was a blind count performed, which is exactly what you want. Blind count meaning when the individual assigned to go count inventory items, there was a listing of inventory items, but there was not a corresponding number that said, this is how much my inventory system's showing. Yeah, you don't want that. So it was a blind count, a later comparison after the count by someone independent of what's in the system. So that's exactly what we wanted to see. What we would like to see that we're recommending, though, is those count sheets needed to be signed off on and dated so that we know who performed the count in case there were any questions, and also the date of the count to verify when it was performed. Observation J. So one of the things we noted too was regarding the adjustments that were made at the end of the inventory count. We could not tell when adjustments were made that were related to, say, a tournament held at the course. So there wasn't a way to identify a descriptive field that could go in, and when maybe inventory was taken out as part of tournament prizes, there wasn't a descriptor that we could say, hey, this prize was for the red, white, and blue tournament, for example. So really we want to be able to see what is taken out in relation to those tournaments and how can we identify those. So again, another TSNAP improvement. And then also we noted that events, they have a pre-event budget. So estimated fees will be provided along with estimated expenses, meaning food and beverage, prizes, those types of things. We didn't see a review from a budget to actual perspective on the back end after the event ended. That would be a great control to see, hey, how did we come out in regards to this overall tournament? Did it come out the way that we planned? Was it profitable? Was it not? Did we break even? Kind of where did we stand? So again, just another item to be able to give more insight and visibility into the finances. Observation K, of Golf Pro lesson incentive payments. So another item not managed through TSNAP are lessons. They're not scheduled through TSNAP anyway. They are maintained on an outside calendar, a manual calendar. Really what we're recommending here is to go in and have a centralized calendar maintained by a non-pro that the pro goes to and says, hey, this is my calendar. I have meetings, lessons scheduled for these days and these times. That way there's someone independent when revenue is, or when the payroll run goes through and that pro is paid for those incentive lessons, which have been authorized by numerous individuals. We did see that, but there's no way to tie back those payments to what were the actual lessons provided, and can we reconcile that calendar of lessons provided to the amount that we're paying.
The lessons are in TSNAP, but the calendar is not.
Yes.
The payments are in TSNAP.
Yeah, the payments are in TSNAP. And I mean, really, that's an accepted model. I mean, that paying the pro through the payroll system, it's really probably the preferred model. There's just more controls that you can put in place there. So, we didn't have a problem with the way that the mechanism was happening. We just really wanted something to be able to reconcile the amount paid to the lesson provided. And then last but not least was just a general observation on TSNAP. As I've mentioned numerous times, just some limitations on the type of information that can be provided right now. So I think it's going to be just working with TSNAP, seeing what can and can't be done, and if things can be reconfigured. And then if not, then there may be a decision or a discussion to be had on, is TSNAP the right software for us? So that was a really quick and a really high-level overview of all of that. So happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to thank the team at CBiz for what I thought was a very thorough report and analysis that you performed here. I think that the timing of this is excellent because we are at a point now where the golf course had reported last year over $2 million in revenue. That's a significant number. That's exceptionally high for the city of Concord, for any municipality really. So I think that having additional suggestions that you made, input to our current systems will only improve the integrity of the operation on the whole. My question is, would you say that similarly when you were talking about the different rates, that when you went in and looked at the data, you didn't really discover any aberrations or there weren't any errors? Would you say that generally that was sort of what you found kind of more or less across the board in your research when you did this?
We did, yeah. The only real error I would say that we identified through our testing was the miscoding in the general ledger, the $889 that was recorded to the incorrect account. That was only the real true error. And again, as I mentioned in my opening comments, this type of audit is really focused on how can we improve things going forward. I mean, yes, our testing may identify some things that, hey, this wasn't done, maybe how we would have liked to have seen it previously, but it's really how do we improve moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to highlight in the report for folks in the audience and at home that in response to each of these observations that you've just summarized, the report includes a section called management response, person responsible, and an estimated completion date. I assume that you've reviewed all of management's responses. Are you satisfied with what's being proposed in terms of procedural changes, and do you feel that they're being proposed in a reasonable timeline to execute them?
We are satisfied with the responses. That is one of our procedures that we do when we get responses, is we do want to make sure, is this practical? Will this work? And will it address what we're recommending? So yes, we are satisfied. And yeah, we did have conversations with both Brian and Pat on some of the due dates. So yes, we're happy with those as well.
Thank you very much.
Council Horn.
Pat, do you think there are a lot of issues, albeit small? Do you think it's feasible that you get all of this done within the timeframes that you've given?
Yes, a lot of these things are things that we've started to identify over the process of, since last April when Josh and I took over operations. A lot of these discussions were things we were having, so we've had internal discussions. We knew we were doing this audit, so we were waiting for the results of that and the recommendations, but we've already had the wheels turning on a few of these things to get them processed as soon as possible. The idea would, some of these need to happen before the start of the season because of how it's difficult to implement them once we get rolling in the golf season. But we're working behind the scenes already and ready to get some of these things in place.
Council Ferguson.
Thank you. So I worked at a golf course probably 20 plus years ago in a pro shop. And so as I went through your report, I found it kind of interesting that many of the same challenges that we had 20 years ago with some of the software and dealing with some of the things like an outing where you're splitting revenue and expenses between food and beverage and the pro shop. And there's these challenges about how you book all that in the accounting system. So each of the things that you pointed out were all things that I, struggled with 20 plus years ago. You noted, some of the policies that need to be implemented, particularly with respect to refunds and with respect to rain checks. Is that a solution that really needs to come from the accounting software, or can we do that outside of that?
Oh, yeah, that's definitely a management policy to implement and create. Yep. And then you would, want the software to be able to support that policy. You don't want to have the policy support the software. Yep.
Thank you.
Council Secretary.
Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you for a great report. This is very helpful. When you were talking about avoid and refund, and you highlighted some concern, did you give any recommendation, immediate recommendation? Because this seemed to be a little complex when you have a resident that pay the same rate and then we avoided to give them, the rate that they deserve or the rate that we approved for them. And then when somebody from outside come, they pay the same rate. So it seemed like the avoid and refund should be fixed in the software right away so that the leisure will give us the right number. What was your recommendation on that?
So with that, our recommendation was really work with TSNAP and see if there's a way to truly distinguish between those two. If there isn't, then there should be a review done monthly to analyze when are we giving those refunds and voids? You know, maybe is there a specific employee that we see a lot of that happening through, and if so, why? Is there a specific time frame maybe when those occurred, and if so, understand, okay, what was happening maybe during that time frame? So that's would be our recommendation. And I think too, just, you know, additional training and instruction to staff on, hey, this is really the proper way to process this transaction. You know, don't be providing voids anymore. Don't be providing discounts. Use the proper rate.
Follow-up. That was my next question about the training, and you just covered the training part of it. Did you have an exact number how many people, like if you take a SNAP, that we were avoiding, that were coming, and then of course giving them back the refund?
And I feel like the terminology is a little confusing because it's not necessarily a refund, it's a discount.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to confuse the rates recommendation with the discount and refund recommendation, because when we reviewed the rates, there are some preset rates in the system where it has the original and then it has like a promotional discount and then it comes down to the correct rate. And then what we found is that sometimes they don't use that promotional rate, or maybe there's one that wasn't set up and so they have to start with the one and then reduce it down to get to the right rate. So I think it's a lot of that is not that people are getting incorrect rates, but it's a training issue of make sure you pick the right promotional discount rate within the system. And then the discounts just in general with the voids, like if they have to return an item or they accidentally key something twice, then they have to void it out. And that was the limitation within TSNAP. They didn't have the ability in the reporting for us to be able to say, well, these are just ones that we hit it twice and we had to do a void on it. It all showed up as a refund. And so that was the difference between the refunds and the voids all being lumped together. It didn't differentiate within the system.
Follow up.
Thank you, Your Honor. I was not confused about the rates because we set the rates up.
Okay,
and
just wanted to make sure.
He did a great explanation to say $2 difference, right?
Right.
So the $2 difference, we are refunding it to the people, right?
No.
At that point, there hadn't been any cash. So all the customer knows is they're being charged $30.
Thank you.
Which is the correct rate.
So I'm asking this question for our own employees to make sure that their process is less tedious or very simple and easy, because as you said, if it's easier for them to go through the process and follow the other process, and you just talk about the training, I think it's important for them to be trained so that they don't have to go through this entire process, because it's easier.
I think clarification on the discounts and refunds are separate things, and what the discount issue has become is expediency at the point of sale and at the counter. TSNAP, a lot of times you have to go through a number of this category, this category, this category to finish the sale. So when you're on a busy Sunday morning, a busy tournament day, what's been used in the past is discount that down to meet the current rate instead of jumping through the 10 buttons you have to get to press the right promotional code. So it's a procedural issue where the refund in the voids that they spoke to were more that TSNAP doesn't show voids. If I ring in somebody for an 18-hole round of golf, but they were only planning on playing a 9-hole round, what you have to do is essentially refund that transaction. You don't do a hand cash transaction because nothing's happened yet, but you refund it. It shows as a refund in the system. So a number of that, the large number that they identified, the 40,000 or whatever in refunds, a large number of that was just simply somebody wanted a 9-hole cart, not an 18-hole cart. Somebody wanted a 9-hole round, not an 18-hole round, or a large basket, not a small basket.
Councilor Brown.
Yes, thank you for this report, and, your thoroughness in going over this, and, recognizing that it is an ongoing process, and I appreciate, Pat, that you recognize that, and the staff will work with that. My interest is in the capabilities of TSNAP and what information it can provide to us so that we can make good decisions on rates and value for our residents. can I use T-SNAP to determine how much revenue was generated from a tournament on a certain day? Yes. And can you tell me how far back can I look? I know you did 2 years. How much data is stored in T-SNAP? Is it a cloud-based thing, or?
I don't know how.
You can date search back as long as we've been using T-SNAP. I believe it was implemented in 2017.
Wow.
Or 18.
So
I'm
cool.
not exactly sure exactly when we started using it, but you could go back and search reports back
Okay.
to that point.
Can I ask follow-up?
Follow-up?
So are you also able, does T-SNAP track, like, who are the most prolific trainers? Like, which trainers are the best? Or does it just show, does it isolate by specific instructors? Or does it just say, hey, there was this lesson?
It shows which
It shows which,
instructor.
and it shows which type of lesson. So if it was
Yes.
kids, or if it was elderly,
Right.
and it
It has
could
which lesson,
also time of day as well?
Yes, it shows the time of day, all the
Awesome.
transactions, yes.
Wow, that's great, thank you.
All right, Council Foot.
Thank you, Your Honor. Question, have you audited a similar type golf course or an entity and gone through the same iteration in other endeavors?
Have not audited a golf course, but certainly have audited point-of-sale systems, inventory. It is, obviously, there's some nuances with a golf course, rain checks, for certain things, but by and large, it's a retail operation, which certainly we audit numerous retail operations.
Follow up?
Did you observe or suspect anything nefarious by any of the employees?
We did not. Now, to be forthcoming, Tiffany and I are from Oklahoma City, so a lot of everything was done remotely. Now, all of our interviews were on camera. They would show us things around the office, for example, where the locked cabinet was, where keys were maintained. So we did observe remotely.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other? Councilor Kretovic.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just for the clarification of refunds, when it comes to the retail establishment that is the Golf Pro Shop, are you suggesting we need to have a policy on return of golf equipment that is purchased? Because if somebody uses a golf club, we are unlikely going to be able to take that back and put that back into our inventory without a cost. Pat is nodding his head here, but at the same time, if somebody purchases shoes or somebody purchases clothing, we would want to have the same type of policies that are available at a store that sells similar goods.
Yeah, we would not, I would agree with you, but that's certainly a management decision on what would be allowed for return. Just my personal opinion, I would agree with you, so.
Councilor Kurtz.
Thank
No, go ahead.
Thank you. In regards to the voids versus refunds, while we're figuring out, you all are figuring out what T-SNAP can do, would it be feasible, and this may be a question for Pat, would it be feasible to have just, whoever is issuing that void or refund to note, like, I've worked a lot of drawers, and sometimes you have to write on the printed receipt, like, the circumstances, right, so that it can be reconciled against whatever report is issued. Perhaps cumbersome in the short term, but can we start getting a clearer sense of voids versus refunds while we're figuring out T-SNAP's limitations or unlocking?
Yes, there is a mechanism so there's two aspects to T-SNAP. There's the countertop point of sale equipment software. There is the capability to note it when you do it.
Oh.
There's just not a way to run a report that then says that, so if you were to ask me for a report, I can't run a report that identifies those individual ones. But when you do it, you can say what you were doing it for.
So if we look at a specific transaction, when you're doing your review that we've recommended, you'll be able to tell whether it was void and why the refund or.
So that's exactly, okay, thank you. So now I understand the recommendation for the review. The review will be able to look at the comments or notes section built into T-SNAP. Perfect. Thank you so much for that
Identify
clarification.
trends and things
Yes,
like that.
great. Thank you so much.
Mr. LeBron.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to identify, Pat and Josh have done a fantastic job at actually coming up with the management responses for everything everything that we have here. I do think that his estimated completion day is very aggressive, and I commend him for that, to try to get all of these things in place, as the season starts. The one thing that I do want to note is that as we look at, the functionality of T-SNAP, we recognize there are some limitations there. We do recognize that, and Pat and Josh have already started doing some training with them, and they know they have to do more. And so we're going to run into the situation of, this is what we need to do, this is going to be a limitation, how do we get through that? So that's one thing. The other thing is that that's going to be the practical nature of actually using T-SNAP. The other part of it is the policies that we need to develop and create. And as we do that, the city manager is the one that ultimately signs off on the policies that we have in each one of our departments, divisions, things like that. But we would like to take an additional step, and we're going to also bring them to the Golf Course Advisory Committee, just because those are the folks that also, many of them have golf experience and understand how the process in the golf courses work. We have a resident expert here who used to work in a golf course, so we'd be able to use his expertise that would be able to help us tremendously. So we'll take that extra step before we bring it to the city manager for his final concurrence on, what the policy actually says. So, there's going to be a number of things that will go on in order to try to make, continuous improvements. And as we go on, there's going to be other continuous improvements that we think, we'll identify and like to make too. So, I think Pat and Josh have, significantly committed to making sure that we do this much better than what we've been doing in the past and continue to improve things as we go forward.
Mr. LeBrun, is Snap a broadly used software?
I think it's pretty broadly used. I honestly don't know how many different systems are out there. I know that we've had, when we looked at T-SNAP, we had several different systems that we considered, and this one seemed to fit the best for us. And I hate to say that no matter what system you use, there's going to be challenges with it. There's going to be things that you need to do that it's going to be difficult to get that implemented, without some sort of workaround. And we recognize those kind of things. But there may be a time where we have to take a look at it and see, is this the right solution for us, or do we need to go out and start looking for something different? But Pat has a lot of connections with other golf courses in the area. He probably has a better idea how many people are using T-SNAP or other systems.
Yeah, it's used, I wouldn't say widely. There's not a ton of them. There's 4 or 5 different ones that are used throughout the state. Plenty of people are using T-SNAP. There's other options out there. I think we need to look into how it was built initially and how the golf course has evolved since we started using it. We're a different operation than we were when we first started using it.
Are they based in New England, Pat, or are they?
They are not. They're based in Nevada.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions for the team? Councilor Caleb.
Yes. I'm just curious, is this the first time an audit like this has been done of Beaver Meadow, or has it been done in the past?
This is the first time that I know of that this type of an in-depth audit on the processes and internal controls have been done. So if there's another one that's been done previous, I don't know about it.
Councilor Credit. Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Did you have a follow-up?
Just a thank you. No?
Right.
No, all set.
I believe that when we had an independent pro that was contracted through the city, there was an audit that was done under the city manager in order to determine whether that was the best option, and then we decided to bring it in-house, that the pros would be part of our staff. Do you recall that? It was like 2005. Ed DeShays was the last pro.
I remember the changeover.
Yeah.
I don't recall.
That's when Nathan was.
If an independent audit would have been something I conducted. There's some review that I worked with.
That's it.
It wasn't to this level, but I know what you mean.
Everybody else said? All right, I would just like to say, I would like to commend the administration for contracting with CBIZ to conduct this audit. This is great progress in the efficiency and effectiveness of the management of an important resource in the city of Concord. As Councilor Todd mentioned, $2 million in revenue last year. We hope with the new clubhouse, we'll see even more than that with a much improved facility for our patrons. But thank you, Pat, Josh, for all the work that you put in with CBIZ, and thank you folks for coming all the way from Oklahoma. I hope that you appreciate the fact that we arranged to have excellent weather for you while you're here, and that we took you out of Tornado Alley though. So, but thank you. Do I have a Do I have a motion to accept the report?
So moved.
All right, moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Work.
Yeah. This brings us to the consideration of items pulled from the consent calendar, consent agenda. Madam City Clerk, item 22.
It was pulled from consent by Councilor Brown. It's the December 2025 fiscal year-to-date financial statements report from the Deputy City Manager.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Councilor Brown, would you speak?
Yes, and actually, this is perfect timing because I want to talk about the golf fund budget. It's on page 38, and if Mr. LeBrun or Mr. Landman would entertain me, I have some questions about the performance report that, you know, is perfect that it follows after that audit.
May I? What page is that on?
So it's on page 38. I'm looking at page 38 for starters, and then I'll go back to 37.
Fine.
Yep. So I was just looking at considering the class and compensation study and looking at the expense, the full-time, the expense of staff, full-time, part-time, temporary, and overtime, and what has been budgeted. And I also considered the class and compensation study, the report that was approved at the last meeting, and looking at the job classification. And I feel like I can understand why there are some difficulties with staff at Beaver Meadow, because as Mr. Landman said, the course has evolved. Things have changed. We have a, Mr. LeBrun, can you tell me who are our full-time staff? Or what positions are full-time at the golf course? Because it seems that they are different than they were last year.
They are different than they were last year. We've had some change in staffing in both the pro shop and also in the maintenance area of the golf course. So,
my question is that it's follow-up. Yes, it's the positions that actually changed. We had a director of operations and head golf pro and an assistant golf pro, and now we have a director of operations, head golf pro, and a head golf pro. And we have a part-time assistant golf pro. Last year we had a course and facilities manager. This year we don't. And I was looking at what's confusing is on the job classification listing for the website, they report to different organizations even. The building and grounds supervisor, according to the job classifications listing, they report to general services, and course and facilities manager reports to recreation, or is considered part of recreation. The equipment maintenance mechanic reports to finance.
Counselor, is there an end goal to the question?
Yeah, I just don't understand which positions are considered full-time, because also the grade is different. The grade listed in the job salaries, the job classifications list the director of operations as grade 22, but in the class and compensation report, it's a grade 15. It lists the building and ground supervisor on our website as a grade 16, but on the class and compensation report, it's a grade 10. So I just, this is $460,000 for full-time. When we had a head pro, director of operations, when that position was created, it eliminated the head golf pro. And now it seems like we have a head golf pro and a director of operations again. So I'm just, can you tell me which positions are considered full-time?
So the full-time positions that we have, and there has been a transition of employees, as you know. So the full-time positions that we have in the pro shop, we have a head golf pro, and we have an assistant pro. Those are the 2 full-time positions. We also have a director of operations. That title still has the head golf pro at the end of it. That hasn't been changed yet, but that's still the title. And that position, the person in that position used to also be the maintenance director. So, and then in the maintenance barn, we have a couple of full-time maintenance employees. One of them is a mechanic, and then we have another grounds and maintenance person. You're looking at the comp and class study and trying to compare it to, what we have here. So, and then you're looking at the grades of the current system compared to the grades of the comp and class study suggested system. So you're going to have a difference in those anyway. So when we look at, where the full-time positions are going to be, I would point you to the upcoming budget, which will have a clear listing of the number of positions, the ones that are full-time, the ones that are part-time, and the ones that are temporary, within the golf fund. The reason that we have a head golf pro now, and it's not necessarily, Pat is not a head golf pro. He's a fantastic director of operations. He's a great facility manager, but I would not want him giving me lessons. And so I think that we've made that change as far as, is Pat still here? I don't mean to offend him, but we've made that change for the director of operations position. But we also needed a head golf pro. And so the head golf pro is the person that we hired, which is Josh Lacasse. He does a great job as a head golf pro, but he's not the full director of operations, which was what Phil Davis was previously. So like any operation, when things change, you got to make the changes. The head golf pro was a position that was an available position within the city operations. We haven't overspent the budget because we've added people. We've just kind of changed the positions that those people were in, and they were approved positions within the Schedule B of the city's classification program. So, we had those available to use. We just changed them around a little bit.
Councilor Fennessy.
Thank you. So how many full-time employees do we have in 2025?
I think it was 5.
And how many do we have in fiscal year 2026?
It's 5, the same number. So whether it was 5 or 6, I don't remember if we have, 3 or 4 people in the maintenance barn, but it's the same number.
Thank you.
Are we ready for the vote?
Yes.
Wait, no, I'm sorry, Your Honor, I had a couple more questions.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I'm looking at camps, and I'm relieved that we can look up stuff in TSNAP. I calculated, based on the calendar, 47 tournaments that have occurred from July 1st until now, or December, and through this report. And last that you had reported, Mr. LeBrun had reported 14 tournaments generated $89,000 in revenue. So tournament revenue is broken down. I'm looking at the tournament revenue fees. Is there somewhere listed exactly what goes into a tournament? When I go onto the city website and I look at Parks and Rec and I want to reserve a facility, as Councilor Kretovic said, you want to reserve Beaver Meadow, but you can't find it on Parks and Rec or on the city. There's no clear description to reserve a tournament at Beaver Meadow. There's no breakdown like this is how much it's going to cost you for food, for 8 to 2. I know that SNHU has a 3-day tournament coming up, and I know that we set the rates, so we should be getting about $15,000 from that. But if somebody is just looking at our website and they want to set up a tournament, where can they go to understand what that rate will cost? Is it in TSNAP, the tournament set rates?
So the City Council approves rates, on an annual basis. You did that at your August meeting this past year. If you look at the financial statements, you're looking at the league and tournament fees. This does not encompass, all of the things that go into the cost of having an outing or a tournament or things like that. So the tournament fees basically are that fee that you pay to be in the tournament, right? So it might be, it might be $25 or it might be $50, but there might also be a green fee associated with that and a cart fee associated with that. They'll go into the green fees and cart fees line. So there's a number of different lines that go into that. Same thing with the leagues. You know, we have leagues that pay a league fee, you know, to play in the league, but they also pay a cart fee. They also pay a green fee. You know, they also drink beer. So I mean, there's a lot of different things that go into it. It's not as simple as just saying, you know, that everything in the, you know, what you said, it was 47 tournaments. I don't know the exact number that we've had, but everything doesn't go into that league and tournament line, because some go into the other lines for carts and green fees and things like that. You know, when you look at, if you want to have a tournament, you know, a local tournament, you know, that the city runs or Beaver Meadow runs for, whether it's people who are pass holders, people with pass holders and guests, or if it's an outing that somebody comes to, you know, whether it's the Crime Line or Boys and Girls Club or whatever it is, each one of those are individual. So they really have to work with the golf pro, and he does that for the most part, you know, over the course of the winter, and come up with, and there's always different number of people that are going to play. They come up with different food, you know, allocations, and the food, you know, goes through the restaurant. So it's not just a simple, straight, you know, cookie cutter approach to how these things work. You know, the council approves the fee structure, you know, for what we charge per person for the tournaments, but, you know, until you get into working with the tournaments, you don't know if is it going to be an 80 person, 100 person, 120 person? There's a lot of variables that go into this.
Thank you, Mr. LeBrun.
But Mr. LeBrun, we could ask, you know, for a report, a TSNAP report that would show us how much revenue each tournament brought in. So, for example, you know, if there was 80 people on a Thursday, you know, from 8 to 2, then we know that's going to be, and it's a shoulder season, it's going to be $59 or $55 a person, and it should tell us, yes, that revenue was generated, because that's not going to track food. That $55 is for reserving that space. Is that correct?
The amount that each person is paying, but typically if you have an outing, then the outing is the one who pays a lump sum fee, you know, in order to play for the outing. So each person in that fee, we would charge them out and bill them on an invoice. This is the invoice that they said it's not included in TSNAP. It's done outside. It's done on a Word document or an Excel spreadsheet. And so those are the things that we have to work at getting into TSNAP. The revenue itself is going into TSNAP, but I may be wrong, but I don't think that we can go and say, you know, in TSNAP it showed that we had a 100-person tournament. It's probably going to show that we had a $6,500, you know, ring in for that day from that tournament. But I'd have to go to the invoice to look at it, and it breaks down, you know, the greens fees, the cards, the, you know, so each item that's included in there.
Okay, so we could do that. We could generate. Last question.
Follow up?
Yes. And this is on page 37. Just, I noticed there's 2 line items, sale of assets for $5,913. I was wondering what that was. And then other revenue is $25,100. Is that the donation?
No, it is not the donation. I'd have to go in and look. That was something that wasn't anticipated. Off the top of my head, I don't know what that other revenue was. The sale of assets, you know, we have mowers, other utility vehicles, we have equipment, and, you know, annually we go through the equipment that we have that's obsolete, unusable for us, and we do our best to try to sell it and get a few dollars for it.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
You just let me know what that $25,000 was at another time. Thank you.
Thank you. Are we ready for the question? The motion is to adopt. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. That takes us to item number 23. Madam City Clerk.
This was pulled from consent by Councilors Brown and Caleb. It's the Fiscal Policy Advisory Committee recommendation to City Council for Parks and Recreation rental fee waivers and reductions.
Do you have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
All right. Moved and seconded. Councilor Brown?
Yes, I would like to know from FPAC how they, more about their discussion. I disagree with their recommendation that, that we're leaving it up to the city manager and Parks and Recreation, but I am open to hearing how they came to that conclusion.
Would you like me to address this?
Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Certainly.
We had a very robust discussion about how we could try and figure out a policy that would apply to the various different types of situations that could occur. And after spending, I don't know, a fair amount of time doing that, we sort of turned back to the Parks and Recreation Director and the city manager and said, how have you been doing this over the last 20 years? And they said, basically, we've just been dealing them on a case-by-case basis because the circumstances of each individual case can be different. And we determined that that's probably the best way to continue to do it, because as we tried to talk through what a policy would look like, we couldn't come up with something that would anticipate the different types of situations that might occur, and we just figured it made sense to continue with the way that it's been done.
Councilor Kayla?
Yeah. Thank you, Your Honor. Yeah, so I pulled this because in reflecting on the priorities document, the high-performing organization section, we're encouraged to foster an environment of clear communication and transparency. So my first question was what Councilor Brown had asked for more context. Now, I did have a really helpful conversation with Mayor Champlin and Councilor Kurtz, but I think I had also been in touch with Mr. Gill from Parks and Rec with a question of how many people or organizations requested or received fee waivers last year, and even if it's just like a ballpark, no pun intended, that would be helpful.
I saw what you did.
Yeah, so that's a question that I have first off. I'm not sure if that was also discussed at the FPAC meeting or if anyone has the answer to that here.
I don't see Mr. Gill in the room.
So you're looking at how many?
Yes, I was just curious. When I had spoken to him earlier, he said it wasn't many in the last year, but I was first wondering if anyone does have that number that's here.
I could give you some examples about kind of what we do and how it works. So, for example, Second Start. And a lot of these we bring, if it's something new, we bring it to the City Council so that they can actually take a look at it and make a determination. If it's something relatively simple that you've, an organization you might have a partnership with, or somebody, or something that is obviously lines up with your priorities, then David and I generally will just say yes or no, and then if they don't like it, they can come to the City Council. I think in the last 27 years, no one's come to the City Council. So you can see that's what the track record is so far. So some examples. So like, for example, Second Start gets a free room for the New American Outreach classes. So in that case, it came to staff. Staff said, that's a great idea. We then brought it to Recreation Parks Advisory Committee. They said, that's a great idea. And then when we brought it to City Council, they said, that's a great idea. So they got a discount, or actually got waived. Project Story, they made a very last-minute request on this. And again, before this process was set up, every one of them came to the City Council, and then you would review it at a public meeting and discuss it and determine whether or not to grant something. Generally, the event took place a month beforehand, because by the time it gets to you, it gets on the agenda and you actually review it, and then people come up and testify about whether or not that organization deserves to get a waiver or not. So you changed it. So they wanted to run their programs out of Keach Park. So they emailed David at the last minute and asked to do that, and I reviewed it and approved it. So that's how that one worked. And the Friendly Kitchen wanted to run a fundraiser for a pickleball tournament, and they wanted to ask for 50% reduction. So David reviewed that with me, and I approved it. That's how it works.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's very helpful.
Follow up?
Yes, follow up. Sorry. So when I read the RPAC report, there was a line in there that mentioned, a lack of a policy may lead to perception of favoritism. And so I suppose that is where my concern lies. Not that I believe that that's happening necessarily, but that there is room for speculation. And I suppose, there is a policy. It does exist on the website. The policy is Parks and Rec does not grant waivers, except for sometimes on a case-by-case basis. And I'm just wondering if it wouldn't, I suppose my question is, would it make sense to simply clarify and publicize some potential criteria that would maybe head off some things like what FPAC dealt with the, I think the root of the issue was the Sunset League coming for a request for a waiver. And yeah, so I think I kind of lost the question there, so I'm very sorry, but that's where my head was at when I approached this.
All right.
It sounded clear to me.
Councilor Keach?
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to make a point that I think we're diving way down into the weeds a little far on this. Transparency clearly is important, but this is really no different than a police officer deciding to issue a summons or a warning, or court enforcement issuing a warning or a summons. That kind of discretion happens all the time, and presumably we hire professional, competent people to make those kind of decisions. If there's a problem, if there's a complaint, I think that's when you come to council.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Horn.
Being on RPAC and us being the folks that asked for this policy, because people coming to us, it was making us uncomfortable trying to figure out if there was a perception of inequity. So I think we've gone in this vicious circle where this is now going to go back to the people that weren't comfortable making the choices, and we're saying, well, we'll let them make the choices. So that's, I guess I don't have a question either. I'm not really comfortable with the fact that we just went in a circle.
Thank you.
I'll wait.
All right.
I'll wait to the end.
All right. Councilor Brown.
You know, I would just say that they have to be decided case by case, but I think it should be council, because I think we have to answer to our constituents and we have to justify it. And I don't think it's right to just say that the city manager or the mayor could unilaterally do that. I think they are individuals, and I think we represent a lot of people across the city, and I think it's on us. This is kind of the same argument that Councilor Schultz brought up, that, you know, we should be making the hard decisions, and we should also be aware of which waivers, which groups are getting waivers. So we can say, hey, yeah, the Sunset League, they got a waiver, but Project Story didn't, or Project Story did. You know, we should kind of have that entire awareness rather than just hearing about it after the fact. I think it's something that we should take ownership of.
Councilor Kurtz?
I've changed my mind. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. City Manager?
Well, that is the way it used to work, and from a practicality standpoint, you probably won't be granting many waivers, because by the time it gets to you, the event has already taken place. So what we're trying to do is, what you asked is that you wanted to make it convenient for people to get waivers. You wanted to make it seamless. You wanted to make it clear out red tape and have transparency. So you said, Mr. Manager, you do it, and if somebody doesn't like it, they can come to us. And if it's something you got a question about, you don't feel comfortable do it, just bring it to us. And that's the way it's worked for 25 years. Never gotten a complaint? Not one? Not one. Not one complaint. And so that's, but saying that, I would say, if you would like it back, that would make, you're welcome. You're welcome to take it back, and just be ready to be the ones to say no to people and yes to people, and start picking and choosing winners and losers.
Let me make a parallel comparison. When I first came on this council, every time somebody wanted a street closure for an event, for Halloween on Auburn Street, for the Black Ice hockey tournament, it came to City Council, and we had to vote on it. And eventually, City Council said, you know, these are not decisions that we really want to be making. And so we delegated that responsibility to the city manager with a proviso. If he was unclear about what should be done, he would bring it back to the City Council, you know, which is also what I expect, you know, if there was an issue around a request for a waiver, and the city manager was
Lights
in
at
doubt.
Memorial Field.
Lights at Memorial Field, exactly. Councilor Cravick.
I was going to ask that we move the question.
Second that.
Moved and seconded. That requires a majority vote, two-thirds majority. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right, the ayes have it. That moves a question.
Amendment?
All those in favor of the...
I'd like to make an amendment, Your Honor. An amendment precedes a motion. My amendment is that...
The question's been called, Councilor.
on the pending motion.
Okay, but you can make an amendment.
No, the
where
question has been-
discussion is ended.
The question has been called.
We're in voting mode.
Yeah, we're in voting mode. Thank you, Counselor Schultz. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no?
No.
All right, ayes have it. Madam Clerk, that brings us to item 24.
This was pulled from consent by Councilors Kurtz, Kretovic, and Brown. It's a report from the Deputy City Manager regarding capital reserves, trustees of trust funds, and friends of the beef donation.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Counselor Kurtz.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a series of questions. Would you grant me the opportunity to ask them all in
Sure.
order? Okay, thank you very much. First, I'd like to begin with an appreciation for the significant amount of staff time that was spent on assembling all of this data into one place. For folks at home, we are discussing right now a 6-page report written that directly responds to a series of questions and allegations that have been raised repeatedly over the past several months. In addition to the summary and narrative explanation within the report, it is accompanied by 19 supporting documents, including MS9 trust fund reports from 2016 to the current report, a partial fiscal year 2026 report updated in December, which cannot be completed because fiscal year 2026 has not yet been completed. Summary charts for our reserve funds, excerpts from City Council meeting minutes and resolutions that speak to the transfers, budget ledger detail reports showing reserve transfers, and documentation related to the clubhouse construction donation. I do have some questions. Should I direct them to Mr. LeBrun or to Mr. City Manager?
Mr. LeBrun.
Thank you so much,
Would you
Mr.
please come up?
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, I
Welcome
haven't
back.
seen you for a while, so.
Thank you, Mr. LeBrun.
Yes.
Mr. LeBrun, were any of the supporting documents that I just drew attention to that you included with your report created for this report? Or
No-
were they all pre-existing?
No, they were all pre-existing.
Thank you. And were they available to the public?
Not all of them.
Okay. So lots of them? Many of them?
The MS9 reports are all available to the public. I think there were a couple of reports in the capital projects that showed information, I guess the reports that look like this.
Right.
That's available to the public. The budget performance reports that look like this, that's available to the public. You know, a lot of the resolutions, all those are available to the public. So there were some that were and some that weren't.
Okay.
Some of the detailed budget reports we provided to the City Council, but we didn't necessarily provide all of those to the full public. We will include those in the budget document this year, starting this year, in order to make sure.
Sorry to interrupt, but all the information has been provided to the City Council.
All the
In the
information is
past.
provided to the City Council.
Each counselor has
Yes.
received this.
Yes. Thank you so much for that clarification, and thank you for indicating that you are going to include even more available to the public in the upcoming budget process. In addition to those documents, the report also references 20 sets of meeting minutes for the trustee of the trust funds, and confirms that the trustee of the trust funds have continued to meet regularly. You list specifically meeting dates from 21 through 2026. Now, you did note that prior to December 2025, those meeting minutes, while they existed, were not available to the public on the website. I'm happy that this process has resulted in providing public access to those minutes, and acknowledging that that gap may have added to some questions in the community. Is timely online posting of the trustee of the trust fund meeting minutes going to be procedure moving forward?
Yes, it will.
Thank you. And could you please also add the minutes from the trustee of the trust fund meetings to the end of our city council agendas when those meetings occur quarterly, as we currently do with other committees?
Yes, we will. I think the last few meetings have been added.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So just to clarify for the public, any questions about trustee of the trust fund meeting minutes will be available in 2 locations, both through the committee website, just as if they were going to FPAC to find meeting minutes, they would find them there, and then also after their quarterly meetings attached to the agendas, all of which are public.
Yes.
Thank you. Related to trustees and procedures, it's my understanding that the trustees of the trust funds serve a custodial or superintendent role in city finances. They may have a more direct check-cutting role in a small town, but in a larger municipality, their purpose is to serve as another body of oversight. Is that a correct understanding?
That's a fair statement, yes.
Thank you. I'd like to read to you really briefly from the New Hampshire Municipal Association 2026 Volunteer Manual, page 45, for those of you following along at home. It outlines the role of trustees. Trustees are custodians with limited exceptions. They have a duty to administer funds, meaning to manage, direct, or superintend the affairs of the municipal trusts. Trustees formally adopt an investment policy to guide investments. They prudently invest funds held in trust by the town. They prepare reports and audits concerning the trust funds in their custody. They file necessary reports with the DRA and the Charitable Trust Division. Do our trustees fulfill those duties?
They do, and they direct the treasurer to actually file them for them. So it's done electronically through a portal. Great.
Thank you. Just for further clarification, I'd like to draw the public's attention to item 4 of the report you prepared and RSA 34.6. It's in the middle of page 5 of the report. It states, the trustees of trust funds of the city shall have custody of all capital reserves. Said trustees shall give bond in such amount and in such form as the city council or board of aldermen shall prescribe. And any trustee who shall make payment of income or principal from any such capital reserve fund before the approval of this bond in writing by the city council or board of aldermen shall be personally liable to the city. So am I correct in my understanding that this means that not only do trustees need to wait on council's direction as the legislative body to determine the amounts and uses of the capital reserves, trustees are actually explicitly prohibited from doing anything with those funds without prior direction from council?
You're asking a legal question. I'm not going to answer it.
Okay. Fair. Would it be reasonable to ask our Mr. Conforti if my interpretation is accurate? I'm trying to make sense of the report for the folks at home.
I wish I could dodge legal questions as well. Now, Councilor Gerst, I think your assessment of that is correct, that the role of the trustees is to execute the decisions made by the City Council.
Great. Thank you so much for that clarification. Moving on, MS9 reports included in the packet date from 2016 to current, as I said before. For the sake of the public, Mr. LeBrun, could you just help me understand what information is in an MS9 report and how a concerned citizen or councilor could use those reports that you release each September to understand or track funds or projects of particular interest?
So the MS9 reports, they provide the trust fund reports, but in this case, we're talking about the capital reserve accounts. It starts with the beginning balance, which, in theory is going to be the ending balance from the previous year. It's going to be anything that's deposited into the reserve, anything that's withdrawn from the reserve. That's going to be by council direction. And then in years that we actually earn interest, there's an interest allocation, so an earnings that go into it, and all of that plays into what the ending balance is for that reserve at the end of the year. So you have all the information that you would be looking for and everything that the City Council prescribed to us to take action on throughout the course of the year.
Excellent. So they serve as a sort of rolling summary for each reserve fund, and we could look MS9 year to year to year to understand the actions of the fund. Thank you. Just want to draw attention to folks at home that in the case of the Recreation Reserve, it appears in the 2016 MS9, and the changes in its balance align with the timeline described in the narrative report and are supported by council meeting minutes. Because MS9 reports are submitted annually to the New Hampshire Department of Revenue Administration, the DRA, they provide an additional external reporting record for these funds. To your knowledge, have there been any concerns raised by the New Hampshire DRA or Department of Justice regarding the Recreation Reserve Fund?
Not to my knowledge.
Regarding any of our capital reserve funds?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, thank you. So in hindsight, some of the questions that have circulated again and again and again in the last few months.
Can I just circle back on that?
Yes, I'm sorry.
There is one thing that you're actually going to be talking about in a little bit.
Okay.
That there was a misreporting by Citizens Bank in, I believe it was 2024. So that was the discussion that we had with the Department of Justice and the way they want to see it corrected. But that's something that they will be talking about in a few minutes. So I'm correcting my answer that, yes, I am aware of that.
Thank you so much for drawing attention to that. I did note that in the council agenda and was satisfied with the letter from Citizens Bank indicating their error, the correction to the MS9 report, and I'm very appreciative of having that for our records.
From there.
For folks at home, while the questions might have been prevented, with the actual work of the finance department shows no evidence of financial mismanagement or malfeasance, and I hope that this effort to put everything in one place will put the public's mind at ease as it has mine. Taken all together, this body of data confirms that the transactions in question and described in the report are supported by formal documentation and established municipal procedures. For example, there are multiple records supporting the same transactions, as should be the case in a healthy accounting system. The fiscal year 2026 $100,000 recreation reserve transfer appears in both the reserve summary documentation and the supporting budget ledger report. The $25,000 donation for clubhouse construction is supported by both the Friends of the Beeve check dated 12/8/2025, the night it was presented at the December City Council meeting, and the accounting entry posting the funds to the capital project on the following day, Tuesday, December 9th. For readers like myself who are not deeply and formally educated in municipal financial records, moving between these materials to connect the full story can be challenging. The educational opportunities available to municipal electeds, while wonderful offerings, are not a substitute for the education and expertise of the members of the finance department and legal department, whose sole purposes are to ensure the above board and careful management of taxpayer dollars, a job for which I believe our staff to be incredibly well qualified. Thank you. So what can we do better moving forward in order to avoid finding ourselves here again? I believe we've taken several actions in the past few months, such as our work to clearly state the purposes for reserve funds, cleaning up old language, and aligning actual fund uses with the documented goals. Mr. LeBrun, where do those updated purposes for reserve funds currently reside, and where could the public access them? Excuse me.
So, we have these reports that go to the City Council on a regular basis. So any City Council agenda that has any of these discussions, that information is available. If you look at the January meeting, that shows all the updated information for all of that. We also have in our budgets any transactions that are involved with any of the reserve funds. You'll see them in the general part of the budget, and again, as I stated before, we're going to add the detail part. So you'll see any transactions that occur in the detail of the operating budgets for any transactions that the City Council is directing us to make. And also you see it on an annual basis in the capital accounts and some of the capital sheets that I referenced earlier.
Excellent, thank you. With budget season upon us, might we include that updated purposes of these reserves as an addendum to the budget presentation, just so we could more easily cross-reference the listed uses and reduce any potential for misunderstandings as we're discussing their use during budget season?
We could add an appendix that would show that.
Wonderful, thank you. And just once more for the record, all of these documents are available to the public at this point, everything I've asked you about.
Yes.
So they have been available to the public. They're available to the public attached to tonight's agenda, which you all have access to at home. They will remain on the website, and all of them will remain available to the public there for any future questions. That concludes my questions. I just want to thank Mr. LeBrun and the city manager.
I'm glad you took a breath.
For my time for your time in preparing this and answering my questions. I want to state clearly for the public that I have full confidence in the financial management of this city in all aspects. I hope that this process and the significant staff time that has gone into answering these questions, again, in one space, puts these accusations to bed and restores some public trust. I hope my fellow councilors join me in accepting this report without reservations.
Councilor.
Thank you.
Councilor Brown.
Yes, thank you. I would like to look at the report, and I'm actually going to start on page 6. Actually, no, we'll say number 5. You list all of the RSAs related to trustees of the trust funds. And I noticed that the last one listed is 34:12, but actually 34:13, which isn't listed, is based on disbursements. And I've written that down and I will read it. No person holding in custody such capital reserve fund shall make any payment of income or principal or authorize the same to be done except in accordance with the provisions hereof. Whoever violates the provisions of this section shall be guilty of a misdemeanor or of a natural person or guilty of a felony if any other person. So these trustees of trust funds, this is a very serious role. They're handling donations, they're handling taxpayer dollars. And now looking at page, I believe it's 4, listing all of the withdrawals from the Recreation Reserve. The purpose of Recreation Reserve was for CIP 443, and none of those withdrawals were for that purpose. So I am glad that we've now clarified and that we have broadened, I'm not glad, but we have broadened it. But in looking back, when all of those withdrawals were made, they were not in compliance. And the minutes were not available until December of 2025. When I went looking for the minutes, the tax collector said they couldn't leave City Hall. Can you explain why the minutes were not allowed to leave City Hall?
I don't know. I'd have to ask the tax collector.
I'm glad that they're listed now, but that was concerning, that they were not available, that I was told they could not leave City Hall. And for the past, the last paragraph, for the past 2 fiscal years, trustees have been provided the MS9, MS10 for review and approval. That's just the last 2 fiscal years. Did they not receive the MS9 and MS10 for approval before that?
If you review the minutes, Counselor, then you'll recognize that there was no indication in any of the minutes that they actually approved them in previous years before the current city treasurer tax collector was in force.
I'm glad that we are now following what is mandated by law. I'm looking at now page 1. The last paragraph, withdrawals, it says 244,000 was withdrawn as part of the final budget allocation, and during budget, we had said this would be back of the budget cuts, and that 244,000 was actually withdrawn from the Community Improvement Reserve, and the council was not aware and did not give approval for that. But I'm glad that going forward, that we will be giving approval for all, and the trustees will be consulted before MS9 and MS10 reports are submitted. Thank you.
That comment that $244,000 was not approved by council is absolutely incorrect. The city council approved it at that meeting, and I provided the minutes of it in this document.
I'd ask that we stick to the truth.
Yes.
That we all tell the truth.
244 was withdrawn after we had said back of the budget cuts.
So we're not gonna stick to the truth.
That's exactly when it came out.
I just want to understand. I just want to understand.
That is the truth, and that is those are the things that I wanted to point out.
For the record, I will just state that the city council gave the city manager the authority to effect whatever measures he needed in order to achieve our goals. Councilor Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just really want to take a moment to acknowledge what Councilor Kurtz, our city manager, our finance folks, especially Mr. LeBrun, have done. I think this was an amazing display of public service, and I can't thank you all enough. I hope that this puts to bed any concerns that folks may have had that I never doubted were to be true, that things were fiscally sound, because I think we need to move past that, and I could not have even imagined a better way of breaking it down, and bravo to you on behalf of my constituents.
Councilor Credit.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to give you a break, Mr. LeBrun. You just sit tight. Mr. City Manager, most of my questions were answered by the previous 2 councilors, but I do have a couple for you that are specific. The volume of inquiries. The volume of inquiries. This report that we were given this evening is 179 pages that you can see Mr. LeBrun has printed out. I know the mayor has printed it out as well. Prior to this, when there have been inquiries from city councilors related to the golf course, finances, reserve funds, and the trust funds over the past year, responding to these often takes a significant amount of time from city staff. I know that there was a public right to know request on emails just related to the golf course, and that was 2,700 pages long. This report, 175 pages, I might be wrong, it might be 179, I want to be truthful here. Just compiling this report, I did run just the questions here regarding the $2.86 million drawn from the Recreation Reserve. The financial director said he couldn't explain where withdrawals came from. Trustee of the trust funds never verified withdrawals. The Recreation Reserve created one purpose but is used differently. And donations for Friends of the Beeve. From the time period in our emails, which are part of the public record, from June 1st to yesterday, there were 75 emails with multiple questions on each one of those emails and also responses. Some of those responses come from the Director of Finance. Some of those responses come from the Golf Division. Some of those questions come from Parks and Recreation. Some of those questions come from your office, and some of those questions, in fact, all of them are likely reviewed by our city solicitor. How much time do you think has gone into responding to the sheer volume of these questions? Repeated questions.
I think it's very difficult for me to come up with a number, because I think there really be two numbers. The number of the amount of wasted taxpayers' money based on the questions that have been asked with no veracity and no truthfulness. There's that whole piece. Then there's the whole piece of legitimate questions and people wanting to find out information. I really don't have an estimate on it. All I can tell you is the taxpayers should be very concerned about that type of behavior.
Thank you, Your Honor. Councilor Kurtz, thank you so much for all your questions, because you really covered a lot of it, which I'm struggling to get through my paperwork here. I mean, I know that following these financial documents is not always straightforward. And over the past several months, we've heard multiple counselors at this table talking about how difficult it is to navigate the budget and the finances of the city. So it's not easy, and I think in general we need to give ourselves some grace. But at the same time, we are relying on the professionals that are our city administration to be the administrators of the city. I also think that it's important to know that the effort that's gone into responding to these, just as you have said, this is on taxpayer money. And it is the same questions that have been asked and answered over and over again. I did want to give you a couple of props. I know that at the October meeting, you had stated something about we don't keep our wallet underneath the pillow. There are some people that took offense to that. I did do the municipal trustee training through the New Hampshire Municipal Association, which is available online in portions. And it also stated that the #1 failure through the charitable trust for the trust of the trustees is that someone leaves the documents in their home. That is the #1. So I think when a question is asked about documents leaving the city, the answer to that is no. The answer, they're not going to leave the city. Maybe it was the meeting minutes, I don't know. It could have just been the phrasing of the question. I think that what's important here is that at some point, this council needs to say, this is put to bed, the questions have been answered, and we're done for now. So that we can all have a break, our city administration can have a break, and our residents can have a break of the constant swimming and expense that has gone into answering the same questions over and over again. Thank you.
Thank you. Are we ready for the question?
Yes.
All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The resolution is adopted. Excuse me. That brings us to item number 25. Madam City Clerk.
It was pulled from consent by Councilor Davey. It is a full measure and list reevaluation project update report from the Director of Assessing.
Do we have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Moved in, approval moved and seconded. Councilor Davey.
Thank you. I have a couple questions for Mr. Rice, if that's all right.
Okay, yeah.
John?
Thank you, Mr. Rice, for staying late to answer my questions.
You may have to sprint down here before you start.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was sitting in nosebleeds.
It's okay.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening.
So, thank you again for staying late, and thank you to your team. I know you guys have worked super duper hard on this, and it's a very anxiety-inducing time right now for you. I'll start with, in the report, can you explain the difference between multifamily, condo, and apartment building for the purpose of this report?
So what I did was looking at our annual report for sales that we report to the Department of Revenue. We have sales in the categories that we isolate, and we have some that we don't have enough sales to provide accurate data. The categories that are provided are the breakouts that the Department of Revenue do by, I'll say, property type in this case. The multifamily, condo, and apartment building, I'm not sure exactly what you would talk about difference. I'd say the difference is ownership, where multifamily and apartment complexes, the unit owners, or the unit occupant does not own the unit. There's a single owner, typically a landlord. With a condo, the individual units are owned by usually either occupant or they're at least individually owned. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does, yeah,
okay.
that's fine. Is there a threshold for smaller square footage single-family homes that was towards the beginning of the report?
I'm going to say no.
Okay.
I don't know where to draw that line just yet because sales that are going to be part of the analysis for finalizing values, we started looking at sales as of October 1st of 25. We'll take that and we'll finalize values in the fall, but also the effective date value is April 1st of 2026. So there are sales that will occur between now and at least September 30th of 26 that haven't even occurred yet. So the anticipation is what used to be entry-level housing has increased in value tremendously. And we're expecting those low-value homes to make some of the biggest adjustments because they are low-value homes. And I just think what a entry-level house is today is much different than it was even 3 years ago.
Totally. Based on what I've researched and how you've explained it to the Tax Exemption Policy Committee, if, so you have the percentages on page 3 for the different uses. If the citywide assessment were to, like, all properties in the city were to be a 65% increase, for example, the single family 58%, that would go down by 7%. The 65% for multifamily would stay the same, and the 86% would go, for commercial land, would go up 21%. Right?
Is there a question? I'm not sure what the
I'm
question
just confirming, like, that's how this, if the citywide number is one number, then how it impacts the other uses for what the valuation.
It's really kind of apples and oranges, I
Okay.
think, the way you're asking it, only because we can take all the sales and we can come over with an overall median ratio, which is actually what our median ratio that we publish and that the DRA publishes every year is. It's all property types. We don't have separate tax rates by property types or commercial versus residential. So I can tell you what when the report is final for 2025, I can tell you what the median ratio is. And then, and I can tell you the target for the median ratio in 2026 is 100%.
Okay.
So it's two numbers that really aren't comparable, I'll say it that way. What I'm trying to show, and I want to make it clear, in these projected market growth by property type, is that when you look at sales in any given year, there is a deviation in value by property type. It's not sustained. It's not the same every year. Sometimes, even if you look at something as simple as a two-story home versus a one-story home, there's periods of time where single-story homes are more desirable than two-story homes. And then there's other times where two-story homes are more desirable than one-story homes. So there's so many variables, and I guess what I'm trying to do is show kind of what, when people ask why value is shifting away from commercial, industrial, and becoming more of a burden for residential property owners. It's an activity in the market.
Yeah.
The sales are showing that, statute requires us to assess based on market value. If that market value is moving in the market, we have to comply. It's not a choice because of the law. So I'm trying to demonstrate what the market is showing us with these numbers based on our revaluation, which was 100% in tax year 2021. So this is movement over the last 5 years.
Final question.
Final question.
To that end, I know the very last line of the report is you shouldn't try to calculate your tax bill. And I realize as you've pointed out, the state is making us do it the way they are. Is there anything residents can do to prepare?
I think, just be aware of what the market's doing. I think it's hard to not know in a lot of ways, but I work in the profession. But I see it all the time, whether in every publication, media outlet. I think there's a common misunderstanding that I've heard in the years that I've been in the profession that the assessment is not market value, that somehow assessments are lower than market value. Assessments always have to be fair, equitable, and an indication of market value. So in 2021, again, it was 100%. And then when we look at sales, we apply a ratio. We do that ratio because our assessments have to be indicative of fair market value for all property types. I want to make sure, again, along with that last line, we're going to keep reminding taxpayers not to apply the prior year's tax rate to their new assessment, because that can be quite scary, to be honest with you. I'll say this. I use this analogy, and it's probably the easiest way to explain to somebody that doesn't work in the profession. But if you have a pizza, and every slice to slice up that pizza is $1 in value, the more cuts you make in that pizza, the smaller piece you have, right? So if budget never moved and we added value, you'd pay less in taxes. So value is not always more in taxes. It's actually, as value goes up, you pay less in taxes. But the reality is we're in a time right now where costs of living are skyrocketing. Fuel's expensive. You name it, groceries. Those costs get passed down through. It's realistic to think that the city's budget's going to increase. That's going to play a role in the revaluation. I'll just put it that way. And you asked what can they do about it? I think you just got to kind of recognize that things are getting more expensive. In the assessing office, the city of Concord, the city manager, all of us are concerned about and aware of it, and we're managing it the best we can and doing everything we can for the taxpayers.
Understood. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor David.
Great question.
Are we ready for the question? I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. City Manager.
John, the numbers that I've seen out there based on real estate studies that are going on, when people make estimates about what's going on in the country, I think from what I'm seeing, Concord in particular and this general area is probably still one of the fastest growing increases in value. So while the west, the south are actually turning, the Floridas, the Austin, Texas, those are starting to drop in value, the residential. But here, they project, every study that I've seen projects now and going on into next year, probably the year after, that's going to continue to increase. You seeing the same thing?
I don't know if I think the increase is kind of in question how much it will continue. I think the larger increases have already happened. It'll be more steady now. I don't anticipate a drop, as I guess I'll say it that way, especially residentially. I will, to Tom's point, commercial does perform very well in Concord, to be honest with you, much better than most of the state. So while there is a shift that's going to occur, it's a typical shift that we're seeing every time we do a revaluation. Even though values have gone up tremendously, we're not losing as much value in commercial and industrial properties as most other municipalities, even in the state of New Hampshire. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Kurtz?
Thank you, John. At the end of the report in the schedule update, you say follow-up requests, including residential interior inspection letters, were mailed starting February 11th. What would you say to folks who receive a residential interior inspection letter and feel disinclined to participate in the process?
It is their choice.
It is their choice. Why should they do it?
I think really it's the best way we can do our job is with good data. We're only looking to verify the data that's in our record. There's no gotcha, aha, or anything of that nature. It's literally just data verification. And in the absence of verification, we have to estimate. And I mean, it is a record. It's been kept over the years, so we do have. But I want to make it clear, it is a choice. The law says it's a choice, and we won't pressure anyone. If somebody doesn't call, there's no repercussions. We are just going to assess what we know to be true and accurate.
Okay. So, all right, thank you, John.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Ready for the question? All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Madam City Clerk, item 28.
This was pulled from the consent agenda by Councilor Brown. It is a report from the Parks and Recreation Director on the operation of the city's 7 outdoor aquatic facilities.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Approval moved and seconded. Councilor Brown.
Yes, I spoke with Mr. Gill about this, and he agreed that he would put some information that I had asked for in, and I said, I will not pull the report if you can put that information in. So I had asked for attendance. I think when we are considering the cost of our pools, what's really important is the value to our residents. And we have 44,000 people. How often are they being used? We're just talking about how the revaluation is going to hurt people who have the least, the hardest. And community pools, a community space is a great gathering. Third place, strengthening neighborhoods. So I think it's really important to consider that. And I also would like to see what our attendance is for non-Concord residents. So I had asked him those questions, and I hope he follows up with a report later. I, asked him about possible incentives. I know other groups receive uniforms. I'm wondering, do we pay for the swimsuits, towels, professional development beyond just the training? So those are some of the questions that I had asked Mr. Gill, and I hope he follows up because he's not here.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Fennessy.
Thank you. I know that RPAC gets a report on attendance, basically. I will say that the attendance figures are probably not super reliable because essentially they just sort of take account, in the morning and in the afternoon. And so if it's the same people who are there, they get counted double. So there's some, I would say there's some noise in the numbers, but they do keep account, and Parks and Rec has that information.
Councilor Brown.
Yes, is that available? Is that in the minutes, the RPAC minutes, that report?
It should be. I'm looking at Councilor Horn. She might remember. I know that this came up with respect to Garrison Pool, and I can't remember which meeting it was. But we looked at basically all of the numbers for each of the pools over, I think it was 10 years? At least 5 or 10 years.
That was last year, COVID.
Right. Councilor Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say I would not have pulled this off of consent, but I do think it probably would matter if we want to be totally comprehensive, that the size of the pools aren't taken account in the, like number of residents per pool. I mean, there are pools in other cities, towns that could be very big. Yeah. So for whatever that's worth, just as a footnote.
Councilor Kurtz.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to, since we're talking about this, draw attention to what the city of Concord pays our lifeguards, because 'tis the season when we will need to be recruiting lifeguards to staff our pools. And according to this report, 1, 2, 3, 4, Our base pay is at or above 7 of the comparable municipalities, and only 2 municipalities municipalities pay more with experience at the top of the scale, which means we're paying our lifeguards quite competitively. And I know that if you do one summer, you're sort of first in line for subsequent summers. So go get registered for your lifeguard training class.
Thank you for that pitch.
Sure.
I'll just comment and say, I really appreciated this report because I've been very puzzled for a while over a map, late 19th, early 20th century map of Ward 4, which was presented to me when I was sitting in Councilor Davies' seat, and it shows 2 ponds in White Park. And I could never figure out why they showed 2 ponds until this report indicated that the upper small pond was converted into a pool as a safe swimming area during the 1930s, during the Depression, as part of Works Progress administration. So, so thank you to Mr. Gill in absentia for clarifying that to me. Are we ready for the question? Sure. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. This brings us to item 31. Madam City Clerk.
This was pulled from consent by Councilor Brown. It's a revised MS9 report for fiscal year 2025 from the City Treasurer Tax Collector.
All right. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Second. Moved and seconded. Councilor Brown.
Yes, so you'll remember in August, I was asking about a donation from Catherine Pappas. She was my beloved neighbor who had passed on, and I noticed that she had given her estate had given a donation, and I was commenting that I noticed it was in the MS9, but the MS9 said 0, and I wondered what that meant, and I was told that that donation would be deposited into that trust, and then when it was to be used, it would be withdrawn. So I'm just noting that that donation of $1,000 should be reflected in this MS9, and it is not currently. So that should be amended. That was from the August meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor.
You're welcome.
Any other comments? All right. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The motion is adopted. This brings us to the comments section. Start with Councilor Todd.
Why not this end this time?
I'm sorry?
Why not this end this time?
Because I saw his hand first. You know I try to mix it up.
I have 2 items, if I may, Your Honor. I have my first item, I want to talk trash, and that is because we have, so get ready. Folks should have received this postcard
Yes, it is.
in the mail if they are part of the automated trash pickup pilot program, which is scheduled to begin June 29th. Now, we'll be getting more information to the public before that actual rollout, but I just wanted to make folks aware that what is being assigned to them are, as pictured here, 2 carts, a 95-gallon recycling cart and a 65-gallon trash cart. Are you automatically married to that? You are, unless you notify by the end of this month your special request to be exempted from that and to get carts of a smaller size or different configuration. How do you do that? You can contact, well, you can look online for more information. It's concordnh.gov. It's /automated collection. That will give you all the information you need to find out. Additionally, on your postcard, if you received it, there is a QR code. You can go right to that. And you can also call General Services at 603-228-2737. And there's an online form that you can fill out, and basically you can make your request that way. So I just want to make folks aware the deadline is fast approaching. It's the end of this month. If you have special needs and you need a different cart than the one that's going to be assigned to you, please contact General Services. My other item is I just would like to note the recent passing of Merwin Bagan. Merwin and his wife Carol Bagan, I think, have through their individually and also through their foundation, have provided enormous benefits over the years to the city of Concord in several areas. And there was a recent front page Concord Monitor article that I think focused really on Dr. Bagan and his vast expertise in the medical field as a neurosurgeon. And it did touch on a couple of other issues. I would suggest that there could actually be follow-up articles just on his contributions to the Audi and to the Abbott Downing Society alone that could take up a further article each. Again, he was really a great guy. And the thing I remember about Merwin is that whenever you ran into him or saw him, first of all, he'd have a big hat on. But second of all, he'd have a big smile. And then he would shake your hand with this fist-breaking grip that he had. There was always a little apprehension when I would put my hand out because I knew I was going to get really clamped down on hard by these huge hands he had. But that was who he was. He was just a friendly, approachable person and always thinking about others throughout his entire life, in his professional and his personal life. So he will be sorely missed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Horn?
Our Merrimack Valley varsity basketball girls team has made it to the Division II semifinals. The game is at 5:30 on Wednesday in Exeter, and I think they would like all of us to show up and cheer for them.
You're here. Councilor Kretovic.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have a couple of questions for our city solicitor, but I'll wait until after the council comments, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
And I just want to thank our Concord Police Department for the event that we had on Saturday at Beaver Meadow, Ski with the Cop. With the help of Ski the Beeve, we had a fantastic turnout. The freezing rain in the morning really made us a little intrepid about what the conditions were going to be like. We see that Sergeant Ben Mitchell is in the back there. He brought his daughter along with them. They had about 40 people borrow skis from Ski the Beeve in order to participate in this event, which is amazing given the weather that we had. We had a great time. I think our police officers had a great time. There's a lot of wonderful pictures on Facebook. I would ask everybody to go look at them. Next year when Ski the Beeve says we're going to have a Learn to Ski program, Councilor Siku, this is for you. When we have the Learn to Ski program that you're going to come and you're going to bring your kids to come and ski. Over the summer, we're going to plan a Golf with a Cop event. It's not going to be out on the golf course. It will be at the putting green. We'll have a chipping contest and a longest drive based on age groups. And that's what we've discussed thus far. Thank you.
Councilor Davey.
Yeah, I just wanted to toss my thanks out to Mr. Hoadley and General Services for extending opportunity to myself and Councilor Caleb for riding along with two of our plow drivers a few weekends ago. Many thanks to Tony and Taryn for sharing their shifts with me. I learned so much about plowing downtown and out on Curtisville Road in East Concord area, and that was really great.
Thank you.
Nothing.
Councilor Kurtz.
Thank you. I just want to take a moment to state my appreciation for the audit and subsequent report of Beaver Meadow Golf Course. People may not remember, but I certainly remember that before I lent my support to the clubhouse project, I did so with a fair amount of trepidation and also with a real strong request of you, Mr. City Manager, that you work hard to tighten the belt there and to make sure that we were operating in such a way that we could gauge the fiscal viability and improvements and success. So I'm deeply appreciative of that process that everyone at the golf course went through, and for you presenting that information to us tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councilor Keach.
I'm good, thank you.
Councilor Fennessy. Councilor Caleb.
Oh, yes. That was quick. Okay. Yes, I would also like to thank General Services for allowing Councilor Davey and I to do that ride along. I learned so much about the logistics of plowing, but I also learned in conversations with the two drivers that I rode along with, Ashley, Alex. I learned from them their perspective on working for the city, and the two of them spoke so highly of their department and the work that they do. They cited the training opportunities available, the opportunities for advancement as being reasons why they stay in this job. I think both of them have worked in this position for a few years. They were both pretty young, and it was just great. I'm really proud that our employees speak highly of working for the city. So it was just so great, and it was really cool. So I highly recommend. Hopefully we don't have another storm, but I guess if we do, I recommend.
In charge of the wing?
You're
the wing driver?
Yes, yeah. No, luckily I wasn't in charge of anything. So I had my second office hours at the laundromat. It went really well. I spoke to a total of 5 people, which was more than I expected. A couple were initially just eavesdroppers, and then I pulled them into the conversation. It was really great. It's just so wonderful to talk to my constituents in an informal setting like that. So the next one, so they're the first Thursday of every month, and the next, here's my calendar, the next one is April 2nd from 6 to 8 p.m. And then I had one last thing just regarding the item 24, the conversation that we had about the capital reserve, trustees of trust funds, all of that lively discussion. Being new, I feel like I kind of stepped into the middle of an ongoing conversation. But I just wanted to say, I think the end result of all of that is great. The increased transparency, just the 100-something pages of the report and all of those attachments that we were given. I felt that the report was really written in an accessible way that even I could understand, being new. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. LeBrun and your department. Just wanted to say that, and I think that is it for me.
Thank you. Councilor Schlosser.
Thank you. People may have seen in the paper that on Saturday, February 28th, there was a tragedy on my street, Badger Street. There was a fire, a house fire, and one of our downtown business owners, Chelsea Annett, and her son had to leave very quickly. Her son had to run out with socks on and no coat. And I was really proud of the community response. The community got a blanket, got chairs, got him slippers, and really helped the family. It was really quite tragic. But really, the response of the fire department was amazing. They were incredibly prompt. They had 7 pieces of equipment, incredibly professional, managing the fire. And I just was so proud of our fire department. And Chief Chisholm was actually leading the effort that night. And there was a picture in the paper of him sort of leaning and talking with Mrs. Annett. And it really doesn't do justice to Chief Chisholm's tenderness and care in which he dealt with this tragedy and this family and helped them. It was a private conversation, but you could tell he was really connecting with her and really supporting her in this tremendous tragedy. And Mr. City Manager, I think this fire department is just incredible, and the leadership we have and how they take this on personally to serve our residents in times of tragedy is just amazing. So I thank you, and I thank Chief Chisholm and his whole department. So thank you very much.
Councilor Secretary.
Thank you, Your Honor. To follow what Jim just said on the same theme of gratitude and just on the professionalism of our safety professionals, the Islamic Society of Greater Concord organized our iftar dinner last Friday, and we requested the safety, and they sent 2 police officers. The level of professionalism is to recommend. Like literally, even how they stand in people, it was well done, and I highly commend them for the professionalism, and they're just friendly, like anybody can come. And they went on, the sergeant went to get toys for the kids. I will share pictures. You have to see how the kids were having a great time. So there's no doubt we have the greatest city in New Hampshire, and I mean it. We were very touched by their level of professionalism. So thank you to the chief, to the city manager, and the entire police department. That was outstanding. Same, again, my thank you goes to all the councilors that took out time out of their busy schedule. Councilor Brown, Grady Section, Councilor Schlosser, Councilor Schultz. I think I didn't forget anybody, but even the one that took the time to let me know that they couldn't make it, this means a lot. And the mayor, you were missed. Many people ask about you, so I know what happened. You are part of the legacy since it started. You never missed it until this year, so thank you. Appreciate the time that we spend with everybody and our community leaders, our elected officers, and it just was a beautiful event, well attended, and we are very proud to live in Concord.
Councilor Brown.
Yes. So thank you very much, Mr. LeBrun, for the report. I appreciate it. I appreciate the changes. I think it's great. And I just want to recognize that, you know, when I raise my concerns, yes, I ask a lot of questions. And I am not going to apologize for asking a lot of questions, because I promised my constituents that I was going to focus on transparency and accountability and following the money, and that's what I'm doing. And I'm really grateful that we are making amends and changes and going forward doing better, because I think that shows growth. And I also noted that after I'd pointed out, you know, some people weren't attending meetings, the Fiscal Policy Advisory Committee meeting changed their meeting time to 5:30 so that everybody could attend. Before, they were only meeting at 4:30. So it's okay to bring up issues, and I'm sorry that some people feel upset. I know that some people may be uncomfortable when I raise these, but we are getting better, and I just wanted to acknowledge that. I want to say that was a most wonderful dinner. Anytime you have an opportunity to accept an invitation by Councilor or Mayor Pro Tem Saku, I hope everyone takes advantage of it, because you just come in contact with the most wonderful people. So thank you for that. I want to point out 2 meetings happening this week. March 12th at Runlet, 6 to 7. At Councilor Schlosser's wonderful meeting, the school board member said everything is on the table when it comes to reductions. So I would highly recommend people coming. We are losing city staff because taxes are too high. I don't know if everyone knows it, so I'm not going to say who, but I just learned of a husband and wife team, both employed by Concord, that are leaving, and their taxes where they're going are 10% of what they're paying here. So having a low tax rate is going to keep people here. March 14th at the Chamberlain House, the Women's Club of Concord is having their St. Patty's Day fundraiser. It's a scholarship for high school students. They do scholarships to get them to college, and it's a wonderful event in a historical building maintained by this club. No city funds to maintain this historical building, so I hope everyone comes. That's March 14th at the Chamberlain House, which is 44 Pleasant Street, from 5 to 7. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Foote.
Thank you, Your Honor. Really appreciate all the positive comments here tonight. Sometimes transparent government can look muddy, but we have good, transparent government led by the finance department and the city manager, and I appreciate those efforts. A couple other things. First order, by the time we meet again, I'll wish everyone a meaningful and peaceful Easter and Passover. St. Patrick's Day is coming, and wish all of those who celebrate St. Patrick's Day to have a great evening. And Concord High Hockey is going to the semifinals again towards repeating in the boys hockey. So that'll be more at JFK Wednesday at 5 for the semifinal. And then lastly, American Red Cross month is March, and if you donate, great, and if you do not, please consider donating platelets, blood, or Power Reds to the American Red Cross. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, gee, what's left to say? A couple of things. First of all, on Thursday, I was accompanying the Leadership New Hampshire class of 2026 on their tour of the State House. And I just want to pass on to Councilor Kretovic that the director of the visitor center turned to me and said, well, Concord's way ahead of the state in planning for the semi-quincentennial. So thank you for the work that you and your co-chair, former Mayor Brule, are doing in that regard. And I know you're meeting tomorrow morning on that. And it was like one of those yes moments. Also, I want to say that on Friday, I had the opportunity to be here in this room for the swearing in of 3 new officers for the Concord Police Department. It was so invigorating and so inspirational to see 3 young people fresh out of college who had decided to commit their lives to law enforcement. 2 young men and 1 young woman, all of whom had gone through criminal justice or law enforcement courses in their colleges. And somewhat shocking, not shocking, but they don't go right on the streets. As people around this table probably already know, and I'll just say for the people at home, they now embark on 40 weeks, is it? How many weeks? In total. 40 weeks total at the police academy and training and all that before they can go solo on their patrol duties. So again, it was great to be here. It was great to thank them for making the commitment to the city of Concord.
And with any good luck, they turn out like Ben.
That's right. Let's hope. In any case, I also, on a more somber note, I do want to note the passing last January of one of our long-term city employees, although he had been retired from us, Phil Bilodeau, who passed away unexpectedly, very unexpectedly in January. He started working in the city engineering department, and he spent 29 years in service to the city of Concord. He retired from our city in 2016 as Deputy Director of Public Works, although he was a construction supervisor after retirement, I believe, for a new pump station at the city water treatment plant. I just want to extend my thanks to his wife, Joan, and his family for sharing him with us. Like Rose Fife, another employee who was here for decades, working and serving the people of Concord, which we deeply appreciate. I had also planned on noting the passing of Merwin Bagan, as Councilor Todd did. I agree 100% with your remarks, Councilor. I think Merwin was the epitome of a community leader, someone who led by example. The headline in the Monitor article that Councilor Todd mentioned was very, very typical and very appropriate. You have to give it back. That was definitely my experience in the years that I knew Merwin. He not only was he distinguished, locally and nationally and internationally as a neurosurgeon, but he was deeply invested in the history of this city, particularly as it regarded the Abbott Downing Company, its legacy as one of our largest employers. When we look at our city flag, the Concord coach, which was made there, is on the city flag. And Merwin worked with the Abbott Downing Society to try to preserve as many of the vehicles that were manufactured by the Abbott Downing Society as possible. He was also, as Councilor Todd mentioned, you could write a book about his engagement with Carol, excuse me, at the Audi. It's hard to think of the Audi, in fact, without thinking of Merwin and Carol Bagan. I guess to wax philosophical, with the loss of Merwin Bagan and John Swope and others, I think we're seeing the passing of a generation of profoundly impactful, philanthropists and leaders in this community. And it makes me reflect and hope that we have another generation coming up behind them, because these are people who lived in the community, worked in the community, built businesses in the community, but served the community in many, many ways, through their treasure, through their lifeblood, through their mentoring. So again, I hope we're going to be looking forward to seeing another generation, but it's hard to think that there's going to be another generation of their like. So thank you, Carol, for sharing so generously sharing Merwin with us. Councilor Kretovic.
Thank you. That was a very fine note, and I hate to end it on a bummer, but I do have a couple of questions for our city solicitor.
All right.
If you would.
Is that all right, Mr.
Yeah.
Manager?
He'll be quick.
And we were going to have John introduce Danielle, but maybe next meeting.
She has a long commute and a young child, so
Maybe at the beginning of the April meeting, we can do that, City Manager? Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Conforti. I have a couple of questions. This is in follow-up to our council orientation when we talked about a conflict of interest. In your presentation, I think that there's some confusion about what it means when it says a conflict of interest exists when an officer or an elected official takes an action or makes a decision that would affect his or her financial interest or financial interest of the officer or elected official's family member. The interest of any organization in which the officer or elected official or the officer or elected official's family member is an employee of the organization or a member of its governing body. Where does it say in this that I can speak to an item, I can vote on an item that is related to something of my employer?
With respect to that provision, again, I don't like to get into hypotheticals with regard to conflicts of interest. If there's questions regarding specific conflicts of interest, we would discuss those in attorney-client privilege communications. Generally, the rules state that there's a conflict of interest potential when someone is voting on something that they have a financial interest in, or or a family member, which is a defined term, may have a financial interest in.
So I appreciate you saying a potential conflict of interest, and where does it relate to if my family member is in a union?
Again, with regard to union contracts, those could have, if somebody is a family member of a union, that could potentially raise a conflict of interest if there was an item before a board or body on that. But again, I don't want to speak to in purely hypotheticals. I think the rules are pretty clear about what could constitute a conflict of interest regarding a potential family member or financial interest, either direct or through a family member.
Thank you. I have one more question, and then I'll be done. If someone sends an email that is a sitting councilor, and it goes out to the full council that includes spreadsheets, charts, links, and other persuasive materials about a matter before the board, does that constitute or circumvent the spirit and the intent of RSA 91A and the public's right to know?
So I will speak to this in this way, that communications that go to the entire, a quorum or more of a body on the business members or the business matters or the matters before a body, that could constitute a meeting under 91A, and that should be noticed and open to the public.
Thank you. With that, Your Honor, respectfully, I would ask the members of this council that we cannot normalize this behavior. And for the past several months, we have received communications from a member of this council distributed through the city clerk in advance of a public hearing that evening, and it's not the same material that was distributed to the public or made available to them. So I would ask Mr. City Manager, when that occurs, that it gets posted to our agenda so that the full public can see what was sent to us as well, and that it's treated like any other communication that is sent in advance of a public hearing and not distributed privately among the city council.
That's something, Janice, that's something we don't.
We can do anything you want us to do.
That is the correct answer. Thank you. All right.
I would think that we would stick to that noon deadline to ensure
Yes,
that
we'll stick to the
everybody
noon
saw it.
deadline, too. If it arrives in the city clerk's office by noon, otherwise it won't be sent.
Treat everybody fairly, right?
Great.
Right.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Your Honor, I have a quick question for the city solicitor. If we receive newsletters from each other, because I know, some of us write newsletters, and we ask the clerk to distribute that, is that a violation of anything? If it's a newsletter that's going out to the entire public?
I think a public document that's being distributed. I don't think, again, I don't want to get into a million hypotheticals. but
Right,
public
right. But I know that
distribution-
I send newsletters and other counselors send newsletters. Is that bad?
I wouldn't, so bad is not a term I would use.
Is it in violation of 91A?
Distribution of publicly available materials, I think, would not be as concerning
Okay.
under 91.
Thank you very much.
Councilor Sekou.
I just want to say during my comment earlier, I forget to add that yesterday was International Women's Day, and happy International Women's Day to all of you.
Thank you. All right, do we have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Mr. Chair. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I didn't eat all day, so I could not wait for this to be over.